chaser. He gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show. This is your host, Bria Ray Harris, and I'm so grateful to be with everyone this evening. Tonight, my guest is Mr. Robert Renteria,
Yes.
who is a civic leader and an international award-winning Latino author. But we're here to talk about why the books are written, not that the books were written, because you have actually created an organization called From the Barrio to the Boardroom.
Yes.
And I actually did read the books. You know, I didn't have my coloring pictures, my coloring crayons for this one, but we're going to talk about all of them in a moment. So, Mr. Renteria, tell the Straight No Chaser show's viewers and listeners what prompted you not just to write the books, but to create the organization and the organization's purpose.
Well, the reason I got involved is because you see, we have money for wars and can't feed the poor. And we have children, teenagers, and adults alike walking around lost in a culture of darkness. And I said, I'm going to do something about it. Because, the problem solving process is recognize a problem, which is obvious, find a solution, which is what's in front of you, and now to work with people like yourself and others to take action and implement. So over the course of the last 11 years and $350,000 later that I invested of my own money, we've created a bilingual, comprehensive, non-generic, culturally relevant book series and program that resonates with the youth and promotes student achievement, helps our kids with their critical thinking skills, and bridges the educational gap.
And critical thinking skills is something that we found out isn't being taught in school anymore and hasn't been for quite some time.
Not at all. What I've learned prior to becoming an author, for those of you from Chicago who are listening, I was the guy that built the spin cycles and the bubble land laundromats all over the city, creating jobs for people, residents, but building businesses for entrepreneurs.
I want to say this before we get deeper into the creation of the organization so that people have a better understanding of who you are. I read the actual book, like I said, and you came from a household that was at one point headed by a single mom.
Yes.
Who got married to a stepdad that you kind of didn't get along with at some points.
Right.
Which a lot of people can relate to. And you had a family structure, though, that pushed you into not settling for mediocrity, but taking a chance on saving your life because you were in East LA. That's where you were born and raised.
Right.
And the possibility of going the dope boy gang route was very easy.
It was right there. I was right there. My dad died my real father died when I was 17 years old. He was a heroin addict. He died on Skid Row in Los Angeles. He died a bum. And I made a drug deal that went bad. And I asked God, if you let me live, I'll sin no more. And I went back to school and I got my GED and I joined the military. And that was a turning point in my life.
I remember that. But what touched me more was when you had that conversation with your grandfather.
Right.
Who said he didn't want you to just be a factory worker at a dead-end job. He wanted you to do more, and you were going to have to get away from East LA to do that, he felt.
Right. Well, he had his own regrets because he had never taken the shot. I mean, he was a good man. He loved his family and was a great grandfather and a good provider. But, he had his regrets.
And he didn't want you to have them as his grandson.
Yes.
So after you got out of the military, you actually took a chance. I'm going very fast. I want people to actually read the book, but you took a chance on yourself. You gambled on yourself at a job interview for a washer and dryer producer. That's what I would call it.
Right. Distribution company. Yes.
And you were hired and you became the salesperson.
Right. For that company. Yes.
And at a point, there was no upwardly mobile movement for you any further. So you were looking for another employment opportunity and you interviewed kind of sort of because the man basically said, I trust the person that recommended you
Right.
and I see you and I get a good feeling from you. Come on. And so you made millions for a second company.
Yes. So he asked me if I would run his company. It was a privately held company out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. They had plans of going through an IPO, which is initial public offering, and they did go public. And I became vice president of a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange.
And after years of that,
Right.
you said, well, I'm going to live my own personal dream and create my own company.
Yes. What happened was after I climbed the broken ladder of corporate America for 6 years, I decided it was time to take the shot for myself. And I'm not talking about a shot of whiskey. I'm talking about take the shot, start your own business. And we opened our business. And within 3 years, we became the number one distribution company in the United States of America.
And that's not a really easy thing to do. That's not something
No.
like going to the corner store to get a lollipop. That's a lot of work and a lot
Right.
of blood, sweat, and tears.
Right.
What prompted you after making all of those achievements, because those are very big achievements, to then turn around and say, yeah, but there's still some folks in the barrio that I need to touch?
Well, you learn that the two greatest days in your life are the day you're born and the day you realize why you're born. And I started thinking about what's going to be my legacy. I mean, I had a nice car, clothes, car, vacations, a few bucks in the bank, but I wasn't making any contributions. I didn't even like myself back then, to tell you the truth. And then in writing the book, I learned the power of word. It was Oprah Winfrey who said, tell your story so we could all be healed. And now I understand that years later, now that we're changing lives and impacting millions of people around the world in real time. So people who know me very well have said, Robert, it's time to come back and focus on Chicago. I can appreciate this international flair that you're doing with, we have problems right here, right now. So that's why I'm here tonight, is we are going to try to bring this to Chicago to be part of the solution.
Now, so that people understand, this is not a 3-part series per se. What it is it's a 3 different age group.
Right.
So this book here, no, let me start here. This book, Little Barrio, is for how old?
That's an activity coloring book for pre-K 1 and 2.
Okay. And throughout it, I don't know if you can see, but it has little sayings and activities for the children. And it's appropriate for their age because they'll get a better understanding when something is said to them in a manner that they can comprehend. This is not over their heads.
Right.
And one of the parts of this book I saw corresponded with something that happened in your life when you were injured at an amusement park.
Yes.
And had to wear a helmet for years. And also went to a special school because the quote unquote regular school did not have accommodations for special needs children at that time. And one of the things that impressed me was your mom's faith.
Right.
That she stayed by your bedside every day, went to work at night, and had to be exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
But she prayed because they told her if you lived, you almost would be a vegetable.
Right.
And you're far from that. That I was very impressed with that because so many people don't believe that faith changes things, and it does.
And it does, right.
And the second thing that impressed me was your sensitivity to the children who were around you. You understood that not that the people that were working with you had ill intent, but they were probably ill-equipped.
Right.
And the children were suffering from it.
At that time, yes.
Do you feel that somewhere deep down was part of the seed that sprouted to want to help?
I think it taught me empathy and sympathy for others. And it was not about self, but it was about selfless. So it taught me, it was a life lesson, having to go to a school for the physically disabled and mentally challenged for 3 years while wearing that football helmet, so I could learn how to walk and talk and read and write again. which proves that quitting is not an option.
No, because after 3 years, you went back to the mainstream school
Yes.
and kept living.
Right.
And that was not an option that anyone expected you to have but your mother.
Right.
And you did her very proudly. I was so that was really deep for me. Now this is part two, as I'm calling it. What is the age group for this book?
Mi Barrio is a high-end graphic novel, and it's used primarily from ages third grade to people older than us.
Okay, because I know a lot of my friends are still into the quote unquote comic books, anime, and this actually fits that bill.
Yes.
And then the third book, From the Barrio to the Boardroom, which is your autobiography, is for how young is the youngest person that could read this?
Well, it's been used as young as fifth grade, but primarily it's taught in middle schools and high schools, seventh grade and up.
Okay.
And with that book, there is a school-based curriculum that was created by Chicago Public Schools. Actually, when the first book came out, that book in 2008, I was called by Arnie Duncan and his team, and they're the ones who created the curriculum. I paid them to develop it, and I donate that curriculum to all schools and programs, as well as a faith-based curriculum that was developed by Westside Church pastors who told me that they see the kids in the hood with the book, but they can't get them to church. So they wanted to use the book as a hook to get our kids into Bible study, to lead them to Christ. They told me so that our kids too could see the promised land. So a faith-based curriculum was developed. So we donate a school-based and a faith-based curriculum at no cost. So when people contact us, we send it over electronically.
Now, let's not minimize how big this is. This is not just in the Chicago public school system.
No, in fact, that those books are currently taught in 24 countries around the world in classrooms across America. And having just been appointed by the WBC, the World Boxing Council, those books are now being moved into 165 different countries to impact the lives of boys and girls of all ages, races, religions, and economic backgrounds from the ages of 8 to 18.
And the purpose is teaching what self respect, self love, overcoming, not succumbing to the neighborhood influences, all that tied in together.
Absolutely. It's about life skills, and it's about hope and believing. And if the dream is big enough, because you need to dream big, that the odds don't matter. See, our public school systems are spending millions of dollars every year on so-called best practices that are not working. If it's not working, then it's not best practice, right? And I've met with CPS, so they do it because of unions, contracts, and paychecks. See, now they're teaching a test, they're not teaching to learn. So what happens is, in essence, they're chasing dead presidents because they need their funding to keep their jobs. So our kids are being processed out. And when I talk to teachers and principals, they say, well, those kids are hard to learn. And I say, excuse me, those kids are our kids. See, our kids don't process the same. So you cannot have standardized testing. If any of us sit in a room together and we go to a class, we're all going to walk away with something different, right? So we have to educate these people. And if we teach our kids today like we did yesterday, we're going to rob them of tomorrow.
What I did learn, my son is almost 22 now, but I remember when he was in school, he had a classmate who, at that third grade first big testing hump, got retained. And what we found out later was, because I was an associate of her mom's, is that she had a different learning style. She was not a visual learner. But because of the way the school system was set up, they did not, I won't say could not, they did not accommodate her.
Sure.
And so once her mother learned how she learned, how her daughter learned, and then got her individual help, she progressed. Now, not every parent has that ability or even that understanding, but with an advocate such as your organization, I hope a lot more children succeed and a lot fewer fail, because it is a testing situation in a lot of cases.
Well, we need to collaborate. What happens is, when I became a non-for-profit, I naively at that time thought we're all going to work together and we're going to help all these kids, but it became very territorial because of
Yes.
funding issues. So you're considered competition. So people work in silos. And my whole mission is to work in collaboration and partnerships, because it does take a village to save a child. And I may sound like a cliche, but it's true. We can't do it alone. So we have to stand together. Otherwise, in the dream of 50 years ago plus of Dr. King, the dream will never become a reality.
Now, let me say this. In 2013, you were the first Latino in the world to receive two National Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Awards for your work as not only a civil rights leader, but as a Latino voice in the educational reform
Yes.
movement. So this is not a quote unquote ethnic program, meaning this is for Latino children only.
No, all of us who have kids or friends that have kids, if you put kids in a room together and you watch them, it can be a black kid, a brown kid, a white kid, any color kids. They're just kids. They don't know color. They know love. And this book teaches these kids that they're not alone and that they are loved.
Now, part of what you also have done, though, is you've had interactions with the criminal justice system.
Yes. Currently, as of November last year, I met with IDOC, Illinois Department of Corrections, and they wanted to create what I call a culture of calm within the prisons because they have a recidivism issue of over 50%. That when they get out, they go back in. So they're giving the Barrio book in English and Spanish and the Me Barrio graphic novel in English and Spanish to 26 Illinois state prisons as of November last year. Just a few weeks ago, they were taken into the women in Division 4 at Cook County Jail. They're using Kendall Kane DeKalb County Jail, St. Charles Youth Prison, Warrenville Youth Prison, and several others throughout the state to help these kids to teach them that there's circumstances and consequences to their actions.
And they also have the opportunity to supersede those circumstances, to overcome those circumstances. Because when I read about how at your first major employment after you got out of the military, and you had done so much as far as the sales side, when you approached about sitting in on management meetings and basically they blew you off because you quote unquote didn't have enough education basically because you had your high school equivalency. And when you left and then not just outsold them with the new company, but then did even more when you established your own, that should tell some people that it's not about all about the book knowledge. Yes, you do have to have some type of credentials. You do have to have, in most cases, a high school diploma to do certain things. But to not have a college degree does not stop you.
No, you have to have the work ethic and you have to do whatever you got to do legally to come out clean on the other side. So you have to surround yourself around good people. And I tell kids all the time, if you're the smartest person in the group, you need to get a new group. So surround yourself around good people who can help elevate you and lift you up, I tell these kids, so that all of them could spread their wings and fly like the angels God intended them to be.
There was something your grandfather said to you about you can tell who a person is by looking at his friends.
Absolutely.
And so I know in a lot of neighborhoods, because of the gang situation or just because of the community situation, you kind of affiliate because you feel like you don't have a choice. And to be honest, some of the members of gangs that I've met have been some of the smartest guys I've ever met because you are an illegal entrepreneur, but you are an entrepreneur doing some of the things that they do. If they learned how to flip that into a legal enterprise, they would out CEO most CEOs out here.
Absolutely. I have some friends that work for the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and they tell me that when they can't solve a case, they go to the federal penitentiaries and they talk to the inmates of how to solve and crack the code to whatever case they can't solve. So there's some brilliant people with mischanneled direction who are in the prison system.
And for young people, before they get into that repeated cycle of recidivism, like I said, the young people in St. Charles and the other facilities, they're reading this book to know that there's still hope. There's
Right,
still the opportunity to achieve.
right. To go out and get what's yours. You know, I met a kid a couple years ago at a pizza parlor. He walked in. He's about 19 years old. He had the tattoos, and he walks up to me. He goes, "You're Robert Renteria." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I can't believe you're here." And I said, "Well, I have to eat too. Who are you?" And he goes, "My name is Nico." And I go, "How do you know me?" He said, "I read your book when I was in St. Charles Youth Prison." I said, "How'd you get my book?" He said, "When I went in," I said, "What were you in for?" He goes, "Retail theft." He said, "They gave me a Bible and they gave me your book."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, what did you learn from the book?" He said, "Well, first of all," he goes, "I'm no longer in a gang." He goes, "And I go to church." He goes, "And I have a business." Now he's 19. And I said, "What kind of business you got?" And he goes, me and my boy Angel, and he brings the other homeboy over with him with the tattoos, and he says, we have a barber shop. I said, where's that? He goes, in my garage. We have 2 chairs. So he goes to the bartender, gets a piece of paper, comes back, and he gives me his phone number, and he says, first haircut's on me. So he goes, can I take a picture with you? And I said, sure. Who's it for? He goes, it's for my mom's because she's in Florida. She won't believe I met you. So he gives the phone to Angel, who's cracking a picture, and he puts his arm around me, and he lets a tear go down. He starts to cry. He was moved that he met the
Yes.
guy who wrote the book, who helped him change his life. That's real time.
Yes. And so often we think that if I don't start at the $500,000 mark, if I don't start with the BMW, the biggest series that there is and all that, that I haven't made it. But there's more than one way to make it. Firstly, money isn't the only way to make it. Is it nice to have money? Yes.
Yeah.
But you've really made it when you've impacted some lives.
Absolutely.
For the better.
I mean, for me, and I've learned now over the last 9 years and 2 months since the first book came out, is that these books that I've written, from the Barrio to the Boardroom, the graphic novel Me Barrio, and the activity coloring book Little Barrio, aren't just books with pictures and words, but a burning message of hope and dreams. You see, for generations to come and for decades to follow till the end of time, kids are going to be turning pages to those books, and that's called a legacy.
If I had a child, which thank goodness I don't, not a little one, because I'm too old for that now. But if I had a young child whose school did not have the books and I wanted my child to read them, how do I get my school to get in touch with you to get the books?
Well, whether it's through Title I money that they have to fund it through or discretionary funding, they would call me directly at 312-933-5619, or they would go to my website at www.fromthebarrio, that's BARRIO.com, or most people email me at robert@fromthebarrio.com.
And make a request.
Yes, they would contact me and they say, hey, listen, can you send me the curriculum? That's usually how it starts. Hey, I heard you have a curriculum. Can you send it to me? We send it over electronically. And then they say, how do we purchase the books? I send them a purchase order. And sometimes they have the money and other times they don't. They do fundraising for it, or they find somebody philanthropic who wants to make a donation. Because it's a 501c3, it's a tax deductible donation. There's also grants and various corporations who, because of diversity and inclusion, have money allocated in their budgets every year to give back to the community. So there's various ways to make it happen, but we can't rely on the city by itself to make it happen because there's no budget. And to say that we don't have any money but we want to help kids is hypocritical. So rather than just waiting for it to happen, we're out there making it happen.
I also know that you're a speaker.
Yeah, that's funny because I had never spoken in public, and the first time I spoke in public was at the Rosemont Horizon. I was shaking to death at the time. But since that time, and in getting some good coaching, since that time, we've a few years ago gave the largest Latino graduation in the history of Illinois at the UIC Pavilion. I spoke to 8,000 people there. I've spoken to thousands of people down in Ferguson, Missouri when they had the riots. They brought me into Ferguson to talk to the kids about breaking the racial divide. So now I do anything from 100 to say 10,000 people and everything in between. So we do conferences, and we're whether it be a commencement speech or motivational speech for the kids, for a summit here in Chicago. So we are spending more time here because of the violence, and I want Chicago to know that we have tools that are culturally relevant, that are impacting the lives of our kids in real time.
Now, if there was a person like Earl who said, you know what, I like what I'm hearing and I want to give a donation, can they do that via the website?
Yes, you can go on the website and there's a donation place where you can sponsor a classroom, or you can make a donation to the foundation from anywhere from $1 to 1 million or more. And we are taking donations because we have 342,000 kids right now in Chicago who are all at risk at this point because of the violence.
And part of this is showing, as we've been saying repeatedly, different ways, that there's another option.
Right.
Because it's not just one child's life, because if one child is the shooter and another child is the recipient of the bullet, now you're talking about two children's lives plus their friends and families.
There's a lot of innocent victims. I mean, if anybody who's been watching the news, and it's hard not to watch it. You know, you've had recently we had a 3-year-old shot in the head or a pregnant woman shot. So there's nothing off bounds right now. And until we can come together with some sort of a truce, which I mentioned earlier that I'm currently talking to some gang leaders in Chicago who've got the book and they're cool with me because it's about the shorties. I'm not coming after them, but they all have sons and daughters, nieces and nephews, or grandsons and granddaughters. And the point that I made with them is, you don't want to have to bury your baby, right? They said, no, then I need you on board with this.
And that's perhaps a unique way to look at it because as we get older, some of us get a little jaded and this is just how this is for me. But what I could accept for me, I would not want for my son if I looked at it as something I know is potentially harmful or dangerous.
Right. So, we want more, and our kids aren't failing because they aim high and miss today. They're failing because they're aiming too low and they're hit. So we have to raise the bar for them and to teach our kids that it's okay to ask for help. You ask for help, I tell the kids, not because you're weak. You ask for help because you have to remain strong. So we have to make sure that we be there for them not only as parents but mentors. Some of these kids don't have a good functioning family. They have a dysfunctional family, and they go from there to another dysfunctional family called gangs. So they're looking for love in all the wrong places. So we need more people to step up and get involved. You can't be part of the solution unless you're part of the process. I hear all the time, somebody's got to do something about those kids over there. Well, that somebody's you and me and all of us listening. We can't do it alone. You cannot be part of the solution, as I said, unless you're part of the process.
What are you doing in the near future as far as book tours and promotion, speaking engagements?
Well, I just did a national conference for hate in America and violence. And I got a call from NCLR, which is National Council of La Raza out of Washington, D.C. And they want to meet with me to get the program into, and this is the Latino groups across the country. But then I get a call from the attorney for Muhammad Ali's wife. And because it being that I'm the chair for the WBC, the World Boxing Council, they're saying, well, this is a multicultural issue. So I'm supposed to be talking soon to the wife of Muhammad Ali to be able to visit various cities and states across the country. That's the plan.
Now, I have to say this. Not only are we, because I'm a boxing fan, so anyone that knows me knows I love boxing. So, as the World Boxing Council chairman of the youth committee, you're still dealing with the young people and influencing their minds because how old are the children that you are over as the chairman?
Age 8 to 18.
So they still fall in the same purview as the books you've read.
Absolutely.
Written. And this was turned into a Chicago-based play.
Yes, 2 years ago I got a call from the members of Gloria Stefan, and they said to me, "Is this Robert Renteria?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, we want you to know our attorney's going to call you. We're going to sue you." And I said, "Why are you going to sue me?" And they said, "You stole our story." Ha ha ha. So Gloria Stefan and her husband and her team was here for a play in Chicago themselves, and they wanted to meet. So we had dinner, and they said, "We want to turn this book from the Barrio into a play." So 2 years ago, they got together with After School Matters, and After School Matters, I think, funded about $130,000 to take 30 inner city kids and take them from the hood or from the barrio to the boardroom. In this case, it was the theater. So these kids produced, performed, and wrote from the book a play. And I got a chance to see these kids transform their lives over a year. So at the end of that year, after the play was released, these kids said to me that my boardroom is the theater.
Wow.
Right.
Again, another positive change.
Right.
Well, is there anything else that I've forgotten that you want the Intellectual Radio Straight No Chaser Show viewers and listeners to know?
We have a chance to bring a solution to the city of Chicago. With nothing to lose and everything to gain, that we want to put these books, with your help, into the hands of every kid or as many kids as possible and exchange the books from the Barrio to the boardroom, me, Barrio, and little Barrio, for all the guns and the knives and the drugs, the needles of booze, and even the cigarettes. That's our ask tonight. The police get involved and contact us.
And again, your contact number, your email address, and your website.
You can call me, please, directly. My personal cell phone is 312-933-5619. The website is www.fromthebarrio, that's BARRIO.com, or you can email me at robert@fromthebarrio.com.
Now, at some point, I'm going to have to meet up with you for my own selfish reasons, which is to see a boxing match, but we'll talk about
We,
that.
as they say, let's get it on. Let's
Let's
do
get
it.
it on. But I'm encouraging all of you who are listening and viewing to, if you don't have a young child or a grandchild in school, to get together with some people and sponsor a classroom and make the book purchases. This is a tax deductible organization, and therefore, this is a write off for you for next year. Sponsor a youth group at your church, sponsor a young people's organization in your community, but get in touch with Robert so that they can get these books so we can begin to see some positive changes in Chicago because we definitely need it. Anytime you make the news for, I think it was 6 days that no one got murdered, and that was like, phew, a breath of fresh air. Although I appreciated the concept, it was a shame that that was news.
Right.
That hurt my feelings. That hurt my soul.
Right.
So this, as they used to say, pick up the books, put down the guns. This is a book that can teach them their own self-worth, their own value, because as Robert Renteria said for himself, I didn't come from the best of circumstances, but I made it.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, I want you to know who's listening that this isn't about me. This is bigger
No.
than me, right? This is being driven by the hand of God himself to be able to be in this many countries. And I'm focused on Chicago over the next couple of years. And hopefully with the help of you and the state's attorney or Dorothy Brown, and if I can get Mayor Manuel, if you're listening, to pick up the phone and call me back, I'd love to meet with you as well.
And with that, we are done with the Straight No Chaser show for this week. As we always encourage economics, enrichment, investment, entrepreneurship for what empowerment. So thank you so much, Mr. Renteria, for being a guest today. This was
Thank
a
you.
powerful show. I am so grateful that everyone got to meet you. And with that, we are ending the Straight No Chaser show. Peace and blessings, everyone. In the name of Jesus, have a safe rest of your week.
Amen.
It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice. Empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.